Welcome to the Software Lifecycle Stories podcast. We bring you stories of what worked and sometimes what did not in the course of discovering, designing, developing, delivering, and using software-based solutions, as shared by practitioners who went through these situations.
In this episode, my colleague from PM Power Consulting, Savitha Kodandapani, shares her journey in IT and software as a developer, a program manager, and how she transitioned into becoming a coach. She shares the magic of boredom and how it motivates innovation, the discovery of her strengths that led her down the path of coaching, and her love for doing different things. She narrates her experience of coaching in different countries and learning from working in different roles in captive IT companies, IT services, and software product companies. Listen on. Hi, Savitha. It's wonderful to have you as a guest for the podcast. I've been really looking forward to our conversation today.
Thanks, Chitra, for having me. And I'm also excited to be on this podcast. Hope we both enjoy this session.
I am sure we will. I am curious to know where and how you began your journey in the IT industry.
Um, so I'll start with what is currently happening, and then I'll go back to how I chose computer science. As I said, my son is in 12th standard right now, and he's writing the board exams. So I used to drop him, and as a mothers, we used to sit and talk about it. And the kids there, they were all talking, saying that they want to go to PES college. And the reason they gave is canteen food is good. They love the food, it seems. So that's the reason to choose a college, and that's the reason to choose a branch also. So they said the computer science has a lot of opportunities to go outside. So the criteria for them to choose a college and a branch was like a food and having fun. Okay, so I guess mine was also like that. I did not have any deep thinking in choosing computer science. I chose computer science because all the other branches that my college offered was like mechanical, automobile, which all required heavy lift weighting, which I know that I cannot do it. So computer science was the easiest thing where I can sit in AC and I code. So being in center of Tamil Nadu, which is very, very hot, sitting in an AC was like a blessing, and that's how I chose computer science.
Why not? I think when you're 17 and 18 years old, it's hard to make a decision. And
yeah, the focus is food and AC, not. I did my computer science in engineering, and I started my career in IT around 2000. So, and that's where this Y2K era was happening. All of the companies were worried about the 2000, and there were a lot of projects and a lot of opportunities that time. And I got selected out of college and got placed in Bangalore. So I moved from a small town to a big city like Bangalore, and I was so excited about my whole career and life in Bangalore. And so far, I have around 20 years of experience in the IT field across various industries like captive or the service industries like IBM, Cognizant, and some product companies. On a personal front, we are a typical Bangalore IT professionals, two of us working in the IT jobs, and I have two kids.
Great. Thanks, Savitha. Looks like you've had a lot of diverse experience across, captives, services companies, and product companies. Is there something that you can share with our audience about the experiences that you've had and learnings from each of these environments that you've worked in?
Sure. So I started with my first job in iGate. That time it was called as Mascot Systems. That time, I guess, everywhere there were a lot of opportunities, and I was fresh out of college and I was so excited to do work. So my first project was on Y2K to figure out the date fields and change the length of a date field from 2 to 4, that year field. So that's how my first project started. In college, I had studied C, C++, and I come here and I started working on mainframe. So it is a completely new experience, but I quite enjoyed. And after 2 months of working in that experience of just converting the 2 length field to a 4 length field, I was like bored. So I started thinking, how can I do this? So I wrote a Perl script and then kind of finished the project, 1 year project in 3 months. So I was on full high note, and when I was very happy. Sometimes I think boredom leads to some innovations. So that's how my first project was. And when I moved on to a second project, it was already in chaos, and there was a tremendous pressure because client was very, very unhappy with us, and we had to finish a 1 year project in a 2 months or 3 months time. So this is how the service industry used to work. The cost and the client was very, very important, and you do whatever it takes to make them happy. So the project is about to get released, and one of my job or the program did not work. Everything else is working, and only my program or my job was not working. So I was 2 days, the whole team was trying to figure out. We were looking at logs, we were looking at the program, we were looking at logic. Everything seems to fine, but nothing. We were not able to figure out what is going wrong. So that time my boss said, okay, come, let's go for a coffee. And he took me. We went out and had a nice cup of coffee, and we were chatting. So he was asking me, what are your strengths in this language? What are your weaknesses? Somewhere in the conversation that came up, and I was telling him, I don't like arrays. I don't like this. So then we came back, and he said, give me your program. I'll look into it. And he saw that, and he went to my weakness, which is an array. So figured out that I had made a mistake in array. So that's when I realized that logic and everything is there, but there is something like a strengths and weaknesses, and you need to be aware of it. So that was my first learning with respect to soft skills also, right? There are your self-awareness. That's where it started. And I started becoming more and more looking into my inside also. Otherwise, I used to be aware of what is happening around. I used to be interested in what's happening around the world. But that's the first experience that taught me that, okay, you need to be aware of what is your strength and weaknesses. So that's one of the experiences I still remember. And that helped me throughout my journey, throughout my career. So I started looking into it. And so then moved on to a captive industry. It was completely different. And maybe since I was interested in learning and self-awareness, so this whole 10 years in that company was a truly learning experience. There was a lot of opportunities to move around. As a captive industry, there was a lot of freedom to move around from one skill set to another skill set, to a different job role, different family. And I was also blessed with a couple of good bosses who was helping me in career. So I had a nice, good time. So that's where I started moving from technology to program management to coaching. And that's where it started. So basically, if you look at a product company, it's completely different again. So product company is where you have to be glued to the environment. You wanted to know what is happening. You have to be predicting the trends in that which is going to happen, which most of them don't know, right? So that was another good experience. So each one of them gives you a different experience. Whereas in service industry, you learn to work under pressure. You learn to work with different stakeholders, lot of coordination. And whereas in a product company, you have to look at trends, which most of us don't know what is going to happen. So as a leader in the product organization, so you need to understand the future trends, which all of us talk about mobile, or all of us talk about cloud, all of us talk about AI, but you need to understand how to use those trends in your organization and how to make help the organization grow. So that's quite a challenge, and that's what I understood from a product perspective. So each of the environment is different, and it helps you to learn different skill sets. As long as you're ready to learn, I think all these environments provides you the opportunity.
Very, very interesting, Savitha. Thank you. So you had mentioned that, as part of your experience in the captive organization, you had the freedom to move into different job roles. and actually have a very enriching career. What is it that prompted you or motivated you to look at new roles within an organization? And, how did that shape your career?
Okay, so what prompted? I guess it's my personality. So I love to do different things. So maybe to put it differently, I get bored of doing the same thing again and again, right? As I was telling in my first project, doing the same thing, I found out, okay, 3 months, write a script and it can be done faster. The role, there is something that you need to learn every time, right? The basics could be a logical thinking or managing people, talking to people. There are some basic elements that's required as part of it, but every job role requires a new technology to be learned or a new skill set that needs to be learned. So that is where the challenge comes, and that's where it helps you to enrich your career. You also feel confident when you go through that, right? You learn something in 3 months, you learn something in 2 months. That gives you confidence that, yeah, I could learn something and I could implement it and help an organization grow. So throughout that, so when, for example, any person who starts, most of us start with a technology background, being a developer or a tester, something like that. But as you grow, you tend to become a lead or you tend to become a manager, whereas you need to have a managing skill set, which is basically how to communicate with your team members, and how to have a conflict resolution skill sets, right? So that, and then when you go to a leadership level, you need to have a skill set of having setting a visions for the team, bringing along the whole team together to get things done. So each level or as you grow, you need a different skill set, and moving from one job role to the other job role really helped me in that. So I was able to pick up certain skill set as I move from one job role to the other job role.
Thanks, Savitha. So the next thing that you actually started doing was coaching people in an organization. And that was one of the new things that you took up in a completely different organization. What was the motive behind, taking up a role like coaching, where your responsibilities are completely different from software delivery?
Yeah, so you correctly mentioned, because there is no power, because none of them report to you, but you have to bring out a change. When you look at like that, it's quite challenging, because the first level of leadership is basically positional leadership, and it's very easy to do it. Whereas coaching and doing things, getting things done from people is really a challenging effort. I didn't think all those things when I took that role. The first thought that I came was I had realized, I was talking about my self-awareness journey, which started in my second project. So I realized that I was good with people because across the organization, I had built a good network, and people used to come to me for every kind of solutions, every kind of problems that they had facing. Either it could be a career move that they want to do, or it could be a personal problems, or it could be anything in the office. So I realized by then that I am very good with people, and people, I was able to kind of maybe listen, empathize, and provide solution. So I thought that, okay, coaching is a good form of using my strengths. So that's how I chose coaching as the next job role that I'm going to play. And when I started, it naturally came to me. But as you rightly said, the results and people, for example, I give a solution to a problem. When I give a solution and they don't do it, it kind of started impacting me also, right? Personally, they have a problem and I give a solution and they are not listening to me, right? So I was getting also upset because of that. So that it took some time for me to realize how to handle those kind of situations, and also put it in a professional way, because it is basically, for a team to succeed, sometimes it requires a lot of mindset and discipline requirements, which is not that easy to get things done. So then I kind of I became self-aware of it, and then my life became easier after that. So that's the first thing that I learned. Coaching, people will take time to implement changes. It requires a lot of discipline. And I should also sometimes let go of certain things. So that's the thing that I learned when I started my coaching journey. And but it also gave me an opportunity to talk to different kinds of people. I have done coaching for different countries, for teams across different countries like China, Tunisia, which is basically, I've never heard of a country called Tunisia before I went there. So it is kind of a different eye-opening experiences when you interact with people like in China or in Tunisia or in Paris. Because mostly we used to work with US or a UK client, and these were completely different experiences for me with respect to coaching teams for agile transformation.
Wow. I think that's a segue into my next question about what were the different cultures that you experienced, and especially in the context of a coach, what did you have to do differently across these countries that you worked in?
Yeah. So I think you asked the right question. What did I have to do differently? Because I realized that people are people sometimes, right? So if you look at basics, people are motivated by the same things across the world. And when we first, for example, when I went to China, so sometimes it looks like it's like an extension of an India, is the feeling that I had, because their culture is also like us. It is basically grown up with an obedience to parents, elders, kind of a thing. Don't ask them questions. If you ask questions, it means we are not respecting them. So that's the mindset that they come from. And coach is also considered as an elder person for them. Okay, so in fact, somebody told me that have a white hair before you go there, so they will listen to you. So, so that's how it was. But after I realized that, and they don't ask questions. So when you do a training, mostly we don't have any questions from them, because they think asking a question is a disrespect to the teacher. So, and this was also coming out in the project meetings when they do a sessions, when we do a backlog grooming sessions, or when we do any stand-up meetings, they don't talk about issues or blocks. So they used to go back after the stand-up meeting, send a mail asking what is that. So asking questions, doubts was big thing for them. So it means disrespect, and they don't want to disrespect anybody else. So that removing that, I don't think I was able to do it. It took a lot of time to just ask questions in a backlog grooming meeting. So to do that, we used to have a couple of games. I used a lot of games in those kind of sessions. So that is the one technique that helped me to kind of convey the messages and keep repeating it. So these were the two things that I did with respect to China and Tunisia. So, and whereas if you look at Paris, was a completely different culture. They took everything relaxed. They used to ask 101 questions for every sentence that I talk, and they used to leave office by 3:00. It's a completely different culture, whereas Chinese used to work for 12 hours a day, and Paris team used to work only till 3:00. So it is sometimes I felt it was like a two extremes that I am working with. But it was fun working with this two different kind of cultures.
Thanks, Savitha. I hope you do get an opportunity to probably write a book, or maybe we could, have a whole episode on cultures for coaches.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like that, because when you ask questions is where I think about it. So otherwise it is there.
From all your coaching experiences and in general your work experience, how much of this do you actually take back home? And you said you have 2 kids. Do you actually try a lot of these things with them and see how they respond?
I think naturally it happens. So once when I was like a project manager, I think I was doing project management at home. And when I was an agile coach, and I use some of the lean principles and Kanban principles in my, I have a board in my bedroom where we track work in progress items, because there are too many things that we all of us do. And I guess as a woman, we have too many things to handle. So yeah, I generally take it. I think instinctively it comes because there are certain things which becomes as part of you, and then you also apply it with your kids, with family, and everybody.
Yeah, I think quite instinctively there is a seamless connection between home and work.
Yeah.
And like you said, we'll end up perhaps taking a lot of our work into home and vice versa.
Yeah, that is true. But I made a conscious decision some time back, because I was working with the production support team, and it was like a 24-hour support, because my team was supporting around 36 countries across the world, and there was always an issue with some country or the other. And I felt that I am working so much. Every time there is an issue, there is a conference call, there is always happening. So I made a conscious decision to kind of not take work back home, and it was a tough decision, and but I had to do it sometime, so I did it.
So that's a segue into my next question, and I guess this question, is coming to a lot of the guests on this podcast channel. Is what is your advice to people who say that they're trying to balance work and home, but could land up in a tough situation like what you described? What is it that you could share with from your experiences to address a situation like this?
Okay, it's a tough question. I've been thinking about it for a long time, because as you rightly said, I also talk to a lot of women, and most of the women quit their career when they have a kid, sometime like that, and like early 20s or late 20s or early 30s. A lot of women take a break from their career. When I talk to them, they say that they are not able to balance. They had to take care of kid or something like that. So I've been thinking about it, because that's the other thing that I also do it apart from my professional job. Personally, I love coaching, and I've been coaching people personally. So if you look at balancing, coming back to balancing work, and I'm not sure whether there is something like that. Because in certain times of life, sometimes work takes precedence, and maybe you need to spend 1 week or 2 weeks at work continuously, and sometimes your life takes precedence, in the sense personal life, and maybe you need to put in more effort and that 2 weeks or 3 weeks again. So in a day, I don't think you can say that 8 hours is for work and 8 hours is for my personal life and then 2 hours for me. I don't think you can do it in every day. But overall in your life, there are some times where you have to focus on work. Maybe there are certain times in your life journey you have to focus on your personal life. So it's up to each one of us to decide where and when to focus on each of those areas. But overall, my feeling is life takes care of itself. Because sometimes I feel people think that if I don't work today, or if I don't take care of my kid now, it will have a problem. So it's not true, is what I feel. So overall in your life, some areas you have to focus on life, some areas you have to focus on your work. And each one of our life is different. As long as we know that which is important at that right time, I think it is called balance.
A very thoughtful articulation of work-life balance. Thanks, Savitha. I remember initially you had said that boredom can lead to innovation. And yet you said that it's boredom that made you look for other things to do. There is some sort of power in boredom, don't you think?
Yeah, I think so, because at least personally it helped me. So when there was an interview between Bill Gates and Warren Buffett, Bill Gates showed Warren Buffett's calendar, and almost out of 5 days, he had 2 days completely free. So, and Bill Gates says that that's the reason why he's able to be, he was able to be up to trend and find the right companies and invest, because that freedom or a free mind gives you a lot of options to innovate, or it helps you, is what I heard. So I think boredom is also like that for me.
I think this is great because one takeaway that I can think of is that everybody has to set themselves some time to just be free of everything. Whether
Yeah.
you want to sit in a park or whether you just want to lie down on the bed and stare at the ceiling. I think all of them have their own, and each one takes away something different from it.
Correct. And I think most of us don't want to be free. You pick up some things, right? If you're free, you automatically go and switch on a TV and just glance at it, or you start picking up some activities and start doing it. Because I think sometimes we talk about productivity in our organization, and we think that being free is not being productive. So I guess that could be the reason why all of us don't keep ourselves free.
Yeah, that's a good point. Actually, that's true. We're all chasing, trying to do something constantly. From the need to always want to do something to the state of just being free and not doing anything. I think it's a great way of re-energizing yourself.
Correct.
Most of us want to have that free time, but I think it's the question of relaxing, right? I've been learning swimming recently, and the coach keeps saying, just relax your body, nothing is going to happen. So I think I'm taking parallels here in the same thing here also. We want to be always doing something or the other. Relaxing is not coming to us naturally, whereas I think that's the natural state. So I think if we learn to relax and being mindful of ourselves, we will be able to be more productive.
That's a great way of rounding off this podcast, Savitha. Thank you so much. I hope our listeners especially take away something from that last bit. It was great having you as a guest. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chitra, for having me here. Hope this is helpful for some of our listeners. Thank you.
If you like the show and would like to share your experiences with the community or know someone else who might want to do that, please get in touch with us at podcast@pm-powerconsulting.com. That is podcast@pm-powerconsulting.com.
Please rate the show on Podchaser, Stitcher, iTunes, or any other podcast client that you find us on. Please also share our episodes with your friends and others in your network. If you or anyone you know would like to be featured on our show, do write to us at this email address: podcasts@pm-powerconsulting.com.